Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Java and overloading methods and what's going to go along with that. The first thing we're going to talk about is the overload syntax. And so with Java overloading, the syntax is going to be the same method name with different parameter or parameters types. The name of the parameter itself is not enough, so you have to make sure you're changing the types on this, and the order itself matters. Also, one of the things you want to keep in mind is the return type itself is not included. Especially when you're talking about overloading a method, you really probably shouldn't be changing the return type, because when you're talking about doing a lot of the actions of that, it's doing the same kind of approach but working with a different set of information. And so you're probably not going to be changing that return type explicitly as the working with when you're talking about doing overloaded methods. Why are we overloading? Well, the reason we're overloading is it's a principle of the idea of abstraction. We want to make it so we can design our code that will work and do things exactly the way we want it to, or in a more broader specific sense. So customization is a huge part of that. I want to make a method so it can do this thing right here, but that same logic or that same pattern can be applied in a more specific way. And so by using the idea of that same method name, by giving it more specific information, I can do that same basic approach, but for a specific subset of that data. And this also increases our human readability. One of the biggest things we want to make sure we remember when we're talking about writing code and designing code is that we're writing the code and designing code for us, the human. We're trying to make the job easier for us. We want to make it so that when other people or ourselves use the code, then it makes the most sense possible. And so that's why we want to make sure that human readability is a big reason why we support overloading in Java. Let's go for some examples of this. One of the things we see in that is the idea of the string class. It has some methods we use all the time, and partial strings. We have the substring methods. So you have substring with an int parameter and substring with two int parameters. So we have string mystring is overload, and string sample equals mystring.substring2, which screams erload, or substring with two parameters. String sample2 is mystring.substring 3, 5, which returns us erl. I know, pretty silly, but we've got it right there. We can also use that when we're looking at where something is inside a string with the index of method. Index of the string parameter returns the int of where it's first found, or -1 if it's never found. So we have string mystring is overloaded, and int first equals mystring.index of e, which returns 2, or int second mystring.index of 3, e, where after the third spot do I see e, and I get that at 8. So it's a really cool value right there. So we can look after and look for a specific string later on inside that. So it's a really cool way we can use existing information and patterns of code that we've already worked with, so they can have something that will happen with that. We also have that happening here with an array list. So we want to put something inside a structure. If I just do pokelist.add and pass it to Ghastly, my Ghastly is going to go right down here at the end of the list, which is great. And now I could also do pokelist.add to Ghastly. And so with that, I'm going to take the existing values, shift those over, and move my other Ghastly right back there in the middle at spot 2, retaining the order of all my existing objects, so it goes over with that. Cute little Pokemon and going right there. Another example right here is using the AP Photo Lab. We have 0 red, and algorithm supplied with it automatically, which takes all the red out of a picture. And you can see right here in the middle picture, all red's been taken out. And then we have 0 red with 4 parameters. We can specify a bounded rectangle where we want to take only the red out of just that rectangle itself. And over here in that third rectangle, you can see that we have a region right here in this section right there where all the red has been taken out of just that one section. And so we can apply that same effect to one part of it. And so it's using the same approach of logic that we have right here, but instead of applying to the entire picture, we're applying it just to a specific section within that. And so we can see that we're going back through and using the idea of customization and refinement, so we can have it go through and do that. So we can take it and we have our order of our cute little Pokemon in a list, so they go in the order we want them to, whether it's adding it at the end or adding it in the middle. Or we can also see when we're working with strings and we have the .substring with a single parameter or substring with 2 parameters, and we have index of with 1 or 2 parameters as well, so we can see what's going on with that. Again, the reason we're doing this is it supports abstraction, allows us to customize code to make it so it's easier to do cool things. And finally, and probably most importantly, it supports the idea of human readability of the code. We want to make sure that when we do something like this, it makes it so that other humans, including ourselves, can read the code and do things that make sense, so our brains work well just with the computers too. Thanks again, cheers, and have a great day.